Hariom, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. As many of you know, we have been flowing through the yamas and niyamas this year in our workshops. And this being our penultimate workshop, we will be focusing on Pranidhana or devotion. Unfortunately, Vivekji is unable to join us tonight, but I will reframe that for you all as an opportunity to have more time with our speaker tonight, who's put together such an engaging and rich presentation. So it will be wonderful for us to have some extra Q&A time with her. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, Dr. Preeti Jaggi. Preeti is currently a professor of pediatrics at Emory University and the medical director of antimicrobial stewardship at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. She shares our community's passion for the environment, and as such, in conjunction with our hospital's administration, Preeti has worked with a working group to champion environmental sustainability practices. She has also completed training with the Climate Reality Project and the Climate Health Organizing Fellows Program through the Center for Health Equity, Education, and Advocacy in the Cambridge Health Alliance. Tonight, she'll be talking about how being an advocate in the local community has I'm sorry. Tonight, she'll be talking about being an advocate in the local community and her journey to take action to advance systems that benefit the environment and therefore human health. Over to you, Preeti.
Thank you so much. Let me just share my screen. Does that look correct to you all? Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all about devotion through advocacy, which can sometimes feel a bit daunting, and hopefully we'll kind of break it down a little bit about um, how to go about this. And I hope to communicate to you that when we organize, one of the main things we're thinking about is organizing and going with a sense of community. This is a picture of the tree huggers in India who are trying to save their forests. So you can see all these villagers that are with each other, protecting the trees, but at the heart of that is really them together. So I will just advance my slide here. Oops. Let me see if I can get this to go. So there's a concept in medicine which is called One Health, and it is the idea that the health of humans is integrally tied to the health of animals and our shared ecosystems. And I think that that really kind of harkens back to this idea of the Vasudeva Kutumbakam, that the small-minded say, this is mine, that is his, but the wise believe that the entire world is a family and that we are all connected. And I'm an infectious disease doctor. We think a lot about how the environment affects health because we see sometimes patients getting an illness from being exposed to a certain animal or swimming in a certain area, like a river or a lake, and they get an infection. But really, the other really big piece of this is that we are all dependent on shared ecosystems. And we know that this is really, really important when it comes to the changing climate. And I often think about it sort of like the elephant in the room, which is a really big problem that we just don't talk about very much. And the elephant in the room is that our climate is changing and our environment is changing in different ways that affects our health. So about 200 medical journals actually published an article, an editorial on the same day in 2021 that said that the rapidly warming climate is the greatest threat to global public health. And we risk catastrophic harm to health that will be impossible to reverse. And I put the picture of the elephant here because the elephant is so big. and it's so daunting. It's so big. How can we attack this problem? And it's also something that we just don't talk about very much. So just by being here and being in community with other people that are speaking about this, you are taking one of the first steps that we need to take in order to really start making the world a more hospitable place for our own health. So these are the climate stripes. I don't know if anyone has ever seen them, but each vertical stripe represents the global average temperatures. And this starts in the 1850s when we started having measurements of global average temperatures. And then over towards the right is when it starts getting a lot redder. And that is that the global average temperatures are actually getting higher. This is what the scientists have been telling us, and this is what this graph depicts. So this is going to profoundly affect our environment. There's extreme heat that we have to deal with. We also know that we have to deal with extreme precipitation events where we have flooding, and sometimes standing water can even change how a mosquito breeds because a mosquito breeds in water. We know ticks, they breed longer now because of the global average temperatures are higher. There's not as much of a winter season. So we know this affects hunger. We know that this affects severe storms and things like that. So just such a profound effect on everything that we depend on as humans to be, to be safe in this world. So this is a very, very big problem. And so I think one of the easier things to do for our mind to grasp this very, very big problem is to just kind of say, I'm just not going to think about it. I'm just not going to think about this. This is fine. Everything's fine. The weather outside's fine. Now, this is not happening. But really, I think what we need to do is to invite some difficult emotions. And these are some of the emotions that sometimes come up when you think about this. It's such a big problem. I'm only one person. How can I make a difference? So there's sometimes fear, there's sometimes anger, there's sometimes sadness. I feel a lot of sadness when I read some of the scientific studies about this. And so I think I just want to talk about that for a minute because I think it's a really, really important thing to think about as we go into this work, that we have to be comfortable with some difficult emotions. And who better to do that with the people that we love to be able to go through these difficult emotions. And so I think when we talk about the problems, that's when we can have a lot of these difficult feelings. But I do think there's a lot of joy in this work when we work together and we collaborate. And so hopefully I'll give you a little bit of an example of how we have been doing that in my community, and hopefully you can bring that into your own communities. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about myself before we start talking about what I have been doing. And this is my family. I'm the middle of three girls. My mom and dad are on the call tonight, which is wonderful. There's my beautiful mom, and I'm the middle of three girls. And my parents actually were born in what is now Pakistan in undivided India, and they had to flee from Bhon and Bindigab in undivided India during the partition. And then my parents emigrated to the United States in the 1970s. I was born in Michigan, and I'm a pediatrician, so that's part of my identity is to really work towards preventing illness in children. My husband is also a physician. He's a cancer doctor, and I have two adult children. And so a lot of what I do is really based in the values that I learned from my parents, in a sense of community, and also trying to make the world a better place, in my professional sense of trying to make the world a better place, and then also just for my own kids because I really want to do whatever I can to give them the best life that they can have. So and that's me when I had a little patient a long, long time ago when I was an intern who had actually meningitis. And this is one of the first years that we had a vaccine that prevents one of the causes of meningitis. And that's one of the reasons that I became a pediatric infectious disease doctor because I saw how we could make things better, decrease rates of really bad disease. And I think when we do climate action, we also are preventing illnesses just like when we vaccinate. So, I'll tell you a little bit of my journey in advocacy. Tonight, I'll be really talking about my journey in advocacy in my community. And so I wanted to just tell you sort of when I started becoming concerned about the environment. And it's actually before I went to medical school. It was actually before I went to college. It was when I was in high school. And I actually remember being in my house and watching this Earth Day special. And it was a bunch of celebrities that were on and talking about how the Earth is really affects our health. And they were talking about the depleting ozone and a little bit about climate change as well. And I remember watching it and being concerned. And I did a little bit of advocacy with my family. My dad started recycling and, has done some things, and I started talking about it with my family. But I had a lot of things going on in my life. I was trying to go, going to college and then eventually medical school and then raising a family. All those things came after that time. But I had that little bit of a seed a long, long time ago when I was in high school. And so we started with just some advocacy to my family. After that, I went to, sc college and medical school and residency. And then when I became an attending, I got my first kind of real job. I had some young kids, and I lived in Upper Arlington, Ohio, and we were trying to start a group that was called Sustainable Upper Arlington, where we were just meeting with people and our local leaders to try to make things more sustainable in our local town. But that was a pretty hard time for me because I had two young children and I didn't have a lot of time. So we ended up I started getting these people who were doing the Sustainable Upper Arlington. They did a lot more. Many of them were retired women in their retirement age, and they were just doing so much, but I just couldn't really, I didn't want to take a lot of time away from my kids because I was working already. And so they started a community garden. And so I started working in the community garden and I took my kids there. And so we would go every weekend to the community garden. And that was a really lovely way to just talk. And we got food and we got it to, local food banks, and so we got fresh food to people. So that was kind of where I was at that point, and that was a very full time of my life because I had young children. And then kind of fast forward to 2016, I got a bit panicked when President Trump was elected the first time because he was saying he doesn't believe in climate change. He was saying he doesn't, want any to do anything for the environment, and so I kind of felt a sense of I don't know what to do. And I don't know how to make things go forward. And I felt a bit overwhelmed and like that there's just nothing you can do. So that kind of prompted me, sort of that feeling that there's nothing's going to be done, to actually do the Climate Reality Project. And that is a project that was started by Al Gore. And he actually trains people to learn a little bit more about the environment. And I went with my sister Seema, and we decided that we were just like, we're not going to just we just didn't want to be there and just complain. We just thought, well, we'll go to this and let's just see how it was. And it was actually a lovely weekend. Met lovely climate advocates, learned a lot, heard President or former Vice President Al Gore speak, and he was very, very engaging. And so after you join the Climate Reality Project and you go through the training, we they give you the slides that he uses, and then you can hook up with your local area. And so I moved to Atlanta, Georgia in 2018. So I started doing a little bit of this work in Columbus, Ohio, where I was, and then I moved to Atlanta. So I'm kind of in a new area. Kids are starting a new school, also a lot of things going on, but the kids are getting a little bit older, and so I had a little bit more time to do some work in this area. And so they actually, when I moved to Atlanta, I moved to a city called Decatur, and they asked us to do a talk from the Climate Reality Project. They asked us to many of us who had done the training to do a talk. And so I decided that I was going to do that in my city of Decatur. And it was the same year I had moved in. I didn't know a lot of people, but I had talked to a couple of people when my daughter was starting soccer, and like just, sitting on the sidelines with some parents talking about things with our kids while they were doing soccer. And so they kind of helped me meet some other people, and we decided to do a talk in my city. And so I gave the talk, which was basically kind of talking about what climate change is and how does it affect health and things like that. And then from there, really, I would say that that actually kind of led to a lot of different things that happened in my community, which we're going to talk about. And eventually, in 2020, our city of Decatur, they have a every 10 years strategic plan. And so they actually go through and say, we're going to set some goals for our city. And they do a very nice job. It's pretty steeped in history that they've been doing it every 10 years. And so several of us, after we did this climate reality project talk, we just started speaking and we said, okay, well, the strategic plan is coming up. So why don't we try to get climate goals into our city's goals for the city? And so that's kind of what where we went next. And so kind of things moved from there. And so I wanted to show you a few pictures first. And one of the things that's really cool about Atlanta is that there's a big history of civil rights. This is actually the renovated new Ebenezer Baptist Church where Martin Luther King had preached and his parents. And it's kind of a little hard to see, but Al Gore is there. And so there was a moral call. So I was able to see that. That was really moving to go to the church and see people talk about civil rights in that storied place. This is actually at the start of there was a kickoff for the strategic plan in Decatur. And so we got a bunch of kids to come and we passed out information about why we wanted clean energy to be part of our strategic planning process. So these are just kids that are sitting out and we took some pictures of their lovely faces before we started. This is Scott. He's a really wonderful advocate with the Sierra Club, and he came to our Climate Reality Project talk, the first one that I gave. This is some of the people that were at that first talk. So it was just, we rented a little local space in our city. And then these are some of the advocates that are in our city that I feel like we just spend a lot of time together talking, either on the phone or together, but that is really where we kind of get our energy is from each other. And then so we started the strategic planning process and as you know, a lot of stuff happened in 2020 with COVID. And so a lot of things actually went we had to, instead of being in person, all the meetings for the strategic planning process were online. And what we decided to do was we decided to they had small groups within the strategic planning process for small groups that get to like put in what their ideas are. And so we all volunteered to be scribes because then we could really make sure that we are talking about climate and trying to get that written for the information to go into the strategic planning, feeder for them to make these decisions. And I also wanted to show you this. It's really an interesting video. So part of the strategic planning process, as we were going through this, which we eventually did get a clean energy goal in our city, was actually just they were on Zoom because of COVID. We didn't want to get together. And this is actually a 12-year-old who spoke. I'm just gonna hopefully see if the audio works here. And I just wanted to play it for you because she's very young, and I think that things that she's saying kind of really profoundly moved me to try to involve youth in the work that we're doing and also to why we do what the work we are doing. So I'm going to just play it for you so you can hear what she has to say.
I believe that adults take no initiative into protecting our climate and future generations. And that all the pressure is put on future generations to turn this world around. And I don't know if we can do that without y'all. So I just want to say that I hope that we as a community can work together to do the right thing and get through this together. Thank you.
If you do interviews of youth, most of them are a little bit older than this child. They're 16 to 25, most of the published literature. About 75% of people are concerned about climate change. And so I think it's really important for us to also show what we are doing, to show the young people in our lives that we care about them. When we say we will do anything for you, we are going to show you, not with words, but with our actions. And so that profoundly moved me. We did actually get a clean energy plan in Decatur out of the strategic planning process. And so that was really exciting. And our city's done a lot of really good things. They've electrified a lot of the vehicles, they've put some solar panels on some of the city buildings. We're working with the school system. So some really good things have come out. We have a sustainability director in our town, in our city government. And so that's all really, really great. And Decatur's a, relatively smaller town, as a suburb of Atlanta. So that was really good. But we still had problems. And the problems were that we depend on state provisions of our electricity we can't make all those decisions. Some of those decisions have to come at the state level. So that was one problem that we saw. We really can't reach exactly what we wanted to do without some state level intervention. And so that was something we recognized. And then also we needed public participation. We needed people to get, how do you do energy audits in your home? How do you, how do you apply for a heat pump for your house, which is electrification? It's better for the environment, all those things. And so we needed public participation. And so how do we implement all these plans? And so like this is just the first step of many steps you need. And so we then really, as I went through this discussion with a lot of the friends I had in the area, we really were just thinking like we don't want individual change. We want system change. Even if I do everything, eat, vegan, I don't travel. I just like it's still negligible. The system change is really makes you actually make big, big progress. And so we needed to engage our community. And so what we did was we started, myself and several other people, we started something called Decatur Cares About Climate. And we just made this website, and we used to send out, we still send out newsletters periodically about what is going on in our community. So we started out with a lot of things about composting and, how do you, what was the city doing, writing into the city. And then we kind of started going from there. And sometimes we talked about different things like the Okefenokee Swamp, which is a really wonderful area in Georgia that we were trying to advocate for. But we just kind of started putting these newsletters out, and we asked people to join us, join our group. And so that was something that we started, and that's been really wonderful to get a group of people in our city that is interested in climate advocacy. And then we made these community champions page, and we just asked people to put a little sentence about why is it that you do this. So my friend Nancy, she said, I'm drawn to so many critical causes, but then it hit me, if we don't solve this crisis, almost every other cause will become very much worse. So I'm so excited to work in the community to impact real change. So we started collecting some just one-liners from people about why they're doing this. And then, I think about this quote. I'm just going to pause for a second and say, when we think about advocacy, sometimes it can be so big and so like it's just the elephant. It's so big we can't think about it. So I would encourage you to think about it in terms of a mosaic. And so these are all mosaics of the Mona Lisa. And the difference in those mosaics is that there are more tiles. There are more tiles on the one on the right than there are on the left. And so if we think of each small system change as being one little tile there, and we all contribute to that, that is how that picture is more clear and more beautiful. And so this is from one of the Jewish texts is that do not be daunted by the enormity of, I'm going to say climate change here. Do justly now. You're not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. You don't have to solve every problem. You just have to work on something. So how did we kind of think through this from here? I'll share you a little bit more of my journey. Really, I think a lot of things really involve kind of stepping out of your comfort zone. So one of the things that I got involved in was a climate and health organizing fellowship. So I found out about this. It's through Cambridge Health Alliance. So some people at Harvard started this, and what they wanted to do was teach people how to organize. How do you socially organize? And I didn't really have any training at all. I mean, I was a biology major and then, went to medical school. I didn't have any training in this area as well. So they actually asked you to partner up as a health professional with a community group. And so I partnered with some group that's called Mothers and Others for Clean Air. And so we have been really working together since that time. So I'll give you a little bit more kind of what we have done and a little bit of information that I learned from this fellowship because it's not something that we always talk about. So this is the Climate and Health Organizing Fellowship, and they really kind of talked about how do you make meaningful action. You need to learn about the why and telling people the why to draw them into the work. And then how? How do you organize? Because you don't have a specific leader. You have many people who want to do leadership activities. And so this is kind of the structure of what they taught us. And they actually paired us up with a coach, and our coach is her picture is here, Noah. She is actually lives in Israel, and we did all of this work on video calls on the weekends, and it was just another like example of I'm finding a lot of joy and beauty in the people that I'm meeting, and I got to meet somebody from Israel who was our coach, who I just loved, and through this fellowship. And so they talked a little bit about how organizing is turning the resources that you have into power. It's not waiting to get resources to start something. It's actually flipped. It's actually starting with the resources that you have. So when we were starting with the Decatur Clean Energy Plan, we knew there were some people in our community that were interested in this work. So we started with that and we said, well, we can participate in the clean energy process in the strategic planning process and we could be scribes for our groups, our mini groups. We made sure we were all in different mini groups so we could raise the conversation. So that was turning the resources that we had, which is some people that are interested in this and willing to participate, into the ability to achieve purpose. So that's kind of the one of the main things that I learned from this, from the didactics that I learned. And then they also taught us a little bit about storytelling. And we got coached on this about how do you draw somebody into this work? I think some of it is, me hearing that this girl is saying that, she feels like adults have let her down in her community, really hit me hard. And I think about my own children and like when I say to my kids, like, I'll do anything for you, do they believe me? And so that kind of thing, and thinking about like, and this is an urgent problem, and we can work together and show our kids that we care about them. That's kind of a little bit of storytelling, like why are you doing this work? And then the next part is the how. How do you do this work? And one of the things that they told us is that leadership in this realm is really trying to accept responsibility to enable other people to do activities to achieve shared purpose in the face of uncertainty. Nothing is mapped out here. There's so many times we have no idea what we're doing. We just are like, well, let's just think and let's just almost like reflecting. I think meditating and taking a deep breath is a good thing because you don't know where to go. You're just trying to say, okay, how can I be creative here? What can we achieve? And it's really enabling other people. And when they talked about the leadership structure, when you do advocacy with other people, they talk about a snowflake. It's not I am going to do everything as one person. It's not you all are going to do everything. I'm going to talk to you and ask you, can you do something? And then have that person take some leadership activities because there is no one leader here. So they talked about growing the snowflake of activities. And so I've seen that in some of the work that we've done, and I'll give you a couple of examples of that a little bit later. And so they also just kind of talked about when we have some difficulties is when we are disorganized, when we don't know, we have to have something to glue us together. Like, what is it that we're asking for? So you have to try to be a little specific. And they actually coached us a lot about trying to say, here, the problem is so huge, but let's try to distill it down to one little thing that you can do, one little tile of a mosaic. And so they just talked about how, when we're disorganized, it leads to apathy. But when we're more organized, it leads to motivation and unity and purpose and change. And some of the leadership activities that can help make you go from a disorganized state to an organized state is a shared story. a shared relational commitments. They talked a lot about one-on-ones. Just call somebody and say, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing? I'm working on this thing, and I was wondering, could you, some things that I've worked on is, could you put something on some mailboxes about an election that's coming up that says, please vote in this election. Could you distribute this in your area? So that's a relational commitment, and then asking them to do one thing. So shared structure, shared strategy, and a shared measurable actions. If you can measure actions, it can lead to a lot of motivation. So the three organizing questions that they really asked us to focus on are, who are my people? Who are my people? That's the first one you focus on. I am not going to go to Massachusetts and work in with people in Massachusetts about clean energy because I don't live there. I don't know people there. I know people in my small little town of Georgia. That is where I'm going to work. I work also in my hospital because I walk around and talk to people in my hospital and we talk about sustainability efforts. So that's all focused on, who are my people? Who are the people of my community? And then we try to, the next question's also a little bit, take some creativity. Look, what's the change? What's the change that we want? And what are the resources that we have? You can sign a petition. You can meet with somebody. You can meet with a leader. You can think about, like, how can you turn those resources into power? And that's their theory of change. So we'll come revisit these things, and hopefully you all can think through those things as we go forward. And so from here, my next part of my advocacy journey was after doing the fellowship. We were actually working on electric school buses, trying to get, because there was some funding from the federal government for electric school buses, which decreases air pollution, which is better for kids' health. So we were actually, that was our project when we did the fellowship. And then all of a sudden, a lot of the funding went away. And so that kind of took a little wind out of our sails that we couldn't do that. So we know that in Georgia, another like sort of parallel arm of what we were doing is advocating to our regulators, state level regulators, about wanting clean energy in Georgia. And those people are called the Georgia Public Service Commission. And so when we started organizing around this, it was actually getting people to come to do a public comment at these meetings. And if you couldn't do a public comment, we asked you to we gave a QR code and we just asked people to put in a public comment written, which doesn't take very long. So I organized some of the physicians, my Mothers and Others for Clean Air organized some of the people that they were working with. We went to some concerts, outdoor concerts that we have. My city does a lot of outdoor concerts and festivals, and so we went to there and we asked people to sign to do a public comment there. And we got, at one day there was a concert. It was a pretty big concert, and we got I think 200 comments because we went there. Then we were able to count it because of the little QR code that we set up, that little structure to be able to monitor it. So we've been going to the Public Service Commission for the last several years and trying to advocate. The Public Service Commission basically regulates the big utility in our state, and then they are charged with bringing us safe, affordable, and reliable energy. But they've been locking us into a lot of fossil fuels, and we have been having a lot of people coming asking for clean energy. And then this year, we actually have a big election. Out of 5 people, 2 of them are up for election. And so this year, we're really working on just getting people out to vote in this election. So, that is kind of a little meandering story about kind of some of the things that I've worked on. And again, the main things that we are asking ourselves every time that we are organizing is, who are my people? What is the change that we want? And then how can we turn our current resources into power, the power that we need? And I want to give you a couple of quick more examples, and then we're going to ask you all to do the same exercise to think about what you might do in your communities. So this is a picture of us at one of our local events, and some of the people are high school students. These are our Georgia Public Service Commissioners. One of my friends, she's very creative. She was like, I want to make their heads really big and put it on a poster board so it catches people's attention to talk about it at a local, this is, I think, at an Earth Day fair. And we just educate people about what is this. Most people don't even know about the election and what they do, and trying to advocate putting in a public comment. So this is one thing that we worked on with Mothers and Others for Clean Air. And then I also just wanted to talk about um, the fact that um, really people are at the heart of when we organize. And so um, we are trying to organize ourselves to have a shared story. So some of the shared story is that we want more clean energy. We know that the burning of fossil fuels is not safe, and climate change is actually an urgent problem. Can you come to the meeting? Can you speak for a few minutes? We did do shared structure with the use of petitions and electronic structures. So some people are really good at helping us create those structures. So if you're an introvert and you just want to help behind the scenes, that's actually very, very helpful. And then, how many public comments can we make so we could count it? Because that creates a little bit of momentum for us. And then I would just say that relationships are at the heart of organizing. I think I learned this also, just the relationship building from a very young age from my parents. That on the top left is my dad with my kids. My parents are very, very active in their community, and I think that has really, really helped me going to the Climate Reality Project with my sister, meeting some very wonderful people in my community who are really interested in this and getting to know them. That's been really important. And just involving myself in some of our school system and with the youth in our area. And then this picture is actually the Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. Many states have an Interfaith Power and Light group, so I just wanted to make you aware of it. And these are all religious organizations that care about the environment. And every year, Georgia Interfaith Power and Light has a wonderful um, retreat that I go to, and we talk about what does the Quran say about caring for the earth? What does the Bible say? What does the Jewish Talmud say? So we have Hindus, Muslims, Catholics, like every type of a person from religious backgrounds. And that's been a really wonderful way to actually create a lot of unity in our community as well. And so if you have an interfaith power and light group that's active in your state, that could be a really wonderful way also to connect with other religious organizations and learn from each other. They have a lot of shared resources. So I wanted to leave you with a couple of quick things, just talking about one, seeing these villagers in India in the 1970s and 80s trying to protect their forest, that they know that that forest is really important to their livelihood, soil erosion, all of them. And look at them, like they probably didn't have that many resources, but they had each other and they actually did make a difference in their community. So that gives me a lot of inspiration. And this quote from Dr. Thomas Dooley that says, "Dedicate some of your life to others. Your dedication will not be a sacrifice. It will be an exhilarating experience because it is an intense effort applied towards a meaningful end." And I think of all the children on the earth right now, trying to make their lives better. That gives me a lot of energy to do the work. Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson, she is a climate advocate, and she also talks about this. She has a TED talk about this Venn diagram, which talks about what brings you joy, what are you good at, and what work needs doing, and where the intersection of those things are might be where you could find joy in your work. And so that can be another framework to think about what you might be want to do in your community. So I hope that we just start the conversation. Just starting the conversation in your communities is the way to start these things. I hope you vote in any election that you have. Local elections are super important. That's something I've really, really learned. And a lot of times you have very nice people that are like two really good candidates, and they actually are super kind and wonderful to work with. So it's a way to get involved in your community that's really meaningful. So I hope you all vote in your local elections and then work together. And then we thought we could break here and really maybe talk with you all about some things that we might want to think about um, how you might use these three questions to think about what you might do in your own communities. So do you want to do that now, Yeshna?
Yeah, so if you will want to take a couple of maybe a minute to just think on these prompts, and if anything comes to mind, feel free to unmute and tell us a little bit about your thoughts, and maybe Preeti can help you walk through this thinking process.
Or maybe even an example of something that you might be doing in your community already. And it doesn't have to be huge.
Hari Om Preeti and Yashna.
Hi.
One thought that's coming to me. I don't know. I maybe today I'm in less optimistic mode. I'm not sure. Uh, the so we have a temple here. So pretty much every week, about 200 or so people eat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Volunteers cook. Um, so we've gone through lots of ups and downs related to plates used, to plastic table covers, to spoons.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many ways it could be done in terms of the board being able to hire someone to wash the dishes, to families to volunteer to wash, to have we have a good steamer that sort of
Mm-hmm.
steams it away after it's washed. Um, but I've seen so many ups and downs, so it feels like the way I have to brush my teeth and floss my teeth every day needs to be done every day
Mm-hmm.
for it to keep up going. When people who were interested in have moved on, then the stuff goes back to us as such. Or I live in New York State, so almost all the schools that I know of in the neighborhood, they use plastic spoons. So I've stopped counting however many students, that many spoons and forks every day.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, want to learn more about school districts. I think I'll end there. But
Mm-hmm. Who do you work with? Like who are some people that you find that are advocates that want to do this work?
right now, I'm not working with anyone. That's such.
Oh, you're not, yeah.
No, 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 not in my neighborhoods or not community. No.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
Or are there some people that you would want to work with, like that you are close with, that, you know, that might be somebody that you could sort of hook up with to do some of the work?
Mm. I'll have to think about it.
I think when we did the organizing fellowship, our coach, they
Mm-hmm.
pushed us a lot to really think about that question. And that was actually helpful because then you don't feel alone too. Sometimes feeling alone in this work can be very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Preeti, I'm going to ask a question on the other side of this. Um,
Mhm.
Sometimes some of my people are very motivated, very engaged, very driven. How do you find balance on that side? Because I see that with you. Like, I feel like you're very motivated, very inspired, very driven to do. How do you find balance and not feel burnt out or overwhelmed or like fully just that this takes all of your energy?
That's a good question. I think that's a very important question for me. I think for a period of time, I felt like I had to like be perfect and, don't travel, don't do this, don't do that. And because otherwise I'm contributing to the problem. And then I felt like I was a hypocrite, sort of. And so I think I let go a little bit of I do believe that somebody who's doing this work should make some efforts to try and, decrease their own impact on the environment. But I find myself letting go of some things to like I'm not perfect and I can't be perfect. And so I let go of some of that piece. I just try to work on system change and I just try to focus on what can I do. So I try not to look at some things that are like depressing that are going on that I actually have no control over so that I just am just focused on what can I do. Um, I guess for me, I also feel like I just can't not do it. I just feel like once I know this, I have to work on it. So, knowing when to stop is sometimes difficult. Meditation for me is very helpful. Meditation for me is really helpful because it just, you get frustrated. You get frustrated. You have setbacks all the time, but you can let the setback make you feel difficult. It feels difficult, but then I think that what I've been learning in meditation is that you can experience it and you can let it go. And so that helps me because you're going to have disappointment during this work. There's no way you're not going to have disappointment. You're going to have disappointment. So, and then the relationships, I feel that the relationships actually keep me going.
That's nice that really the people bring you up, they lift you up.
Yeah. Hmm.
Nice.
Because there's a lot of people that actually are trying to do the right thing. I think about that's why I actually encourage people to start thinking about what are your local people doing because a lot of local people are doing a lot. Like we have in our county of DeKalb County, our local DeKalb County commissioner, he's wonderful climate advocate and he worked on all of um, the landscaping around all the libraries to make it regenerative and teaching the landscapers how to do regenerative landscaping so they don't mow as much, they don't blow as much, so they don't need so much energy to do those things and they don't experience as much air pollution then. And he's the one who did that. And it's just like, that's a local person who's doing something. He's actually doing a lot for our county. So I really encourage people to start thinking about what's going on in their local community because many, many times you will find people and you can actually meet them. And when you can meet them, that's just really nice.
Hari Om, Preeti.
Hi, Rupa.
Hi. Um, what you just said is wonderful about knowing what's happening in the community, but I feel I don't know where to start, and I feel like where you were in, I think what year was it when you started? I feel I'm that far behind, and I may make small changes in my lifestyle, but I don't know how to translate it. And for instance, I know in my town the whole plastic bag thing was pretty big in New Jersey. We have that in effect now. We don't have
Hmm.
plastic usage for shopping and all that. So, but I don't even know what are the initiatives that are going on. I mean, yeah, I should go and find out, but I know in what stage what is. And I wish I would know more about what the community environment programs are and or what can I initiate with very little support? Like what can I get started with?
Hmm.
That makes sense.
Yes, I think that is like the big question, right? Those are the three questions. So, um, do you have a town meetings or town
Yeah, like
commission?
there's a green count there's an environmental commission and there's a green team that meets. We do have in our town we do have a green fair that I try to attend like every year. Um, but beyond that, I know I was interested in finding out about community composting.
Mhm.
Um, I of course I only went to one meeting. I didn't go. So it's also that yes, that getting out of my comfort zone and going to every meeting and understanding more and seeing that progress is also so important. But um, I'm also like, I get complacent, maybe fearful, oh, what is going to happen? How am I going to do this? And that's the mindset that comes. Though
Mhm.
I'm interested and I'd rather stick to the changes that I can manage in my house is where I'm stuck, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So I'm just talking it through. I'm just thinking about, okay, how am I going to move forward?
Hmm. I think also the negative feelings can keep us down, right? Like is this going to actually make a difference? Like nobody will want to participate with me, or like the doubt is also kind of can keep you down. So, even if you make a tiny goal, maybe just going to one meeting and just listening and just seeing like who are the people that you meet, that could be just a starting point. Because there are so many things. You just have to pick one that you want to start working on, I think there's many things. I mean, I'm telling you, like many years of work that I've been doing in this area, but there's many failed projects along the way here that I'm not talking about. So, that is okay. That's part of the learning process. So, I think that's why I think we have to talk about the emotional, how it makes you feel to do this work, because if we don't recognize that it's kind of hard, and we're willing to do it anyway. I think that's very important because that can sometimes keep you from being able to start doing a project. It just makes you not start. So just going to any meeting some people, I think that's probably the best place to start.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Preeti, I had a question about how to go about finding your people in such a politically divisive climate. I live in Connecticut, but my parents snowbird down in Florida, um,
Mhm.
and they live in obviously a red state and a very red um, town and neighborhood. And the homeowners association has very strict rules. And I know one of the things that gets on my mother's nerves is their use of pesticides.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about, well, how do you go about figuring out who has that same mindset without necessarily, without maybe pushing any buttons, or just kind of surreptitiously getting a sense for who might share your same values.
Mhm. So the Yale Climate Communications has done some national surveys, and actually, I think it's 60% of Americans are concerned about climate change. So it's actually more than half. Um, you might ask about when I ask people about. Well, so right now we're doing this, getting out the vote thing for the Public Service Commission, and we have a little card and we passing it out to people and saying, this election is really important about your energy bills and about climate change, and which one of those two things is most important to you? And I'm very, very surprised about how many times people say climate change. It's actually interesting to me. Not, I would have thought between energy bills and climate change, you would have said bills, your bills. Um, I think it's a matter of maybe just you can say, I am concerned about this. Nobody can argue with you saying like this is an important value to me is to respect our environment because I know that my health is dependent on it or something, whatever you want to say. And then you see what the person's reaction is to see maybe if there is a person that is somewhat like-minded. I do think living in the South can be difficult for this conversation. You feel that I actually think we might overestimate how many people feel that they don't want to talk about it. Um, in my hospital, we talk about sustainability, but mostly I focus on waste. I say the word waste, like drug waste or plastic waste, or most people don't like the word waste. So you can also find common ground in waste. Um, those are probably some things that I have encountered that have helped me. But there's nothing that people can argue with and saying like, I am concerned about this. Like nobody's going to argue with it. How can they argue with that? You feel something and they might say, well, you're brainwashed or you're blah, 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 but they're not right. I mean, they're not right. This is science. Like, you know, then move on to the next person. I think just let that roll off your back and not let it bother you. A lot of people think I'm crazy, so let them think what they want to think. How are we doing on time here? Do you want me to wrap up, Yashna?
Yeah, I think we have about 6 minutes left, and so we'll just have a little bit of time for announcements. So yeah, maybe I'll wrap up. If anyone else has a question, feel free to unmute, we might be able to take one or two more. Otherwise, we can move on to announcements.
I will leave you with this quote from the Vedas. Mother Earth, may whatever I dig from you grow back again quickly, and may we not injure you by our labor. So everything that we do, we want to keep with our precious earth, which is the precious resources that we have, and then the precious people in our lives. So I really thank you all for coming. This has been wonderful to spend some time with you all. Stop sharing here.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Preeti. I will now hand it over to Rupali to finish us off with the announcements.
Hariom. Thank you, Preeti. That was really insightful and very powerful. Actually, what all you are doing, this was really amazing. So some of the announcements for today, gratitude to everyone who all participated for efforts for all. We met our goal towards water through cleanups and to our earth through fasting. And let's do the same for our animals. We are only 38% of our goal to support wildlife SOS. So please continue to donate. Do support wildlife SOS. The link is just shared in the chat. And the second announcement is that our annual Loving Earth Family Retreat is 2 months away. So block your calendar. We look forward to seeing everybody. The registration link is shared in the chat. And lastly, our next Loving Earth monthly workshop will be in December due to the change in the calendar. So mark that. And that's about it. So should I close, Yashna, or should we wait? Okay, so I will end the meeting by chanting 3 times Om. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you.